You want to change the world? How about beginning with yourself? How about changing yourself? How about being transformed yourself first? How do you achieve that? Through observation, through understanding, with no interference, with no judgment, because what you judge, you cannot understand. My! He's a communist. Understanding has stopped at that minute. You slapped a label on him. She's a capitalist. Understanding has stopped as of that minute. You slapped a label on her. And if the label carries undertones of approval or disapproval, even worse. How are you going to understand what you disapprove of, or what you approve of, for that matter? Sounds like a new world, doesn't it? Well, ready to hear something new? No judgment, no comment, no attitude. One observes, one studies, one watches, not even with the desire to change what is. The day you attain that, you will experience a miracle. You will change. Effortlessly, correctly. Change will happen. You will not bring it about. As the light of awareness settles upon your darkness, whatever is evil will disappear. Whatever is good will be fostered. You will have to experience that for yourself. And when there's something within you that moves in this direction, it creates its own discipline. The moment you get bitten by the bug of awareness, oh, that's so delightful. The most delightful thing in the world, the most important and the most delightful. Because there's nothing so important in the world as coming awake, nothing. And there's nothing so delightful as being aware. Would you rather live in darkness? Would you rather act and not be aware of your actions? Talk and not be aware of your words? Would you rather listen to people and not be aware of what you're hearing? Or see things and not be aware of what you're looking at? The great Socrates, who said, the unaware life is not worth living. But a self-evident truth. But most people don't live aware lives. They're living mechanical lives. Mechanical thoughts, generally somebody else's. Mechanical emotions. Mechanical action. Mechanical reactions. Want to see how mechanical you are? My, that's a lovely shirt you're wearing. I feel up. For a shirt, for heaven's sake. You feel proud of yourself when you observe that?
So our brains are conditioned not only by exterior influences, pressures, and propaganda, but also inwardly, psychologically. Our desires, our fears, our greed, our beliefs, all that, our sorrows and pain, conditions the brain. So one of the questions It's very important to ask, can the brain cells, please, my friend and I are talking together, there is no disturbance. We are both together, aware of the question and asking each other that question, whether the brain cells can themselves transform, change. Otherwise, conditioning will go on forever. The whole school who say condition can never be radically changed. It can be modified. It can be made more habitable, more easy to live with. There's that whole school. But the friend and we are saying to each other, is that so? Or is it possible to change radically? Not bit by bit, partially, but totally. Unless there is that radical change, man is going to live forever in conflict, pain, sorrow, destroying each other, each one asserting his own demands, his own desires, his own pursuits, his own fulfillment. And so there is never coming together, and therefore there is never peace in the world. So the friend says, is it possible? It is possible when you perceive the total content of consciousness. Our consciousness, with all its reactions, like a tide going out and coming in, action, reaction, is the movement, that's a perpetual movement. And all the content, the beliefs, the dogmas, the rituals, the pursuits of various kinds, the desires and so on, the whole content of our consciousness is what we are. Our name, our form, our bank account, our not exact bank account, the attachment, and all that is what you and your friend are. That consciousness is the consciousness of humanity. It's not yours or mine. Consciousness of all mankind. Because all mankind goes through agony, through great pain, loneliness, despair, depression, chattering it away. That's the consciousness, whether you go to India, Japan, Russia, or here. So we are humanity. We talked about that yesterday. So is it possible to bring about a radical change in our consciousness? It is possible if you are aware, without direction, without control, without motive, just to watch all the thoughts, the anxiety, just to watch it, not to run away from it. like watching a great jewel in your hand, watching all the facets of it, the color, the brightness, the dull spots, the open spaces, to watch it without any movement of thought. Then that brings about a radical change in the brain cells themselves.
Vernon, could you talk more about letting thoughts pass naturally?
About what, please?
Letting our thoughts pass naturally.
Yes, a thought passes naturally. It comes up first, and it passes naturally, look, when nothing interferes with it. And the only thing that can interfere with a thought is, guess who? You. The supposed you, which is made up of other thoughts, stops other thoughts to see whether it's acceptable to it or not. See, we're all Supreme Court judges in our own deluded minds. And we even think that we have the power to judge thoughts rightly. So the judgment is stopping them. Never judge your own thoughts at all. That's identification. That means you say, I like that thought because it flatters my ego image, right? I don't like that thought, or I don't like that person because he went contrary to my thoughts about the great, marvelous human being that I am. How many of you think that you're great and marvelous human beings? How many of you are deluded? When nothing stops thoughts, they perform their work rightly.
But what I'd like to stress right now is self-observation. You're listening to me. Are you picking up any other sounds besides the sound of my voice as you listen to me? Are you aware of your reactions as you listen to me? It's extremely important, or else you're going to be brainwashed. Or else you're going to be influenced by forces within you of which you have no awareness at all. And when you're aware of how you're reacting to me, are you simultaneously aware? Now that's postgraduate work, okay? Okay. Are you aware of where it's coming from? Maybe you're not listening to me at all. Maybe your daddy's listening to me. You think that's possible? Of course it is. Again and again in my therapy groups, I come across people who aren't there at all. Their daddy's there. Their mommy's there. They're not there. They never were there. They really weren't. I live now, not I. My daddy lives in me. Really. But that's absolutely true. Literally true. Literally true. I could take you apart and say, now this sentence, does it come from daddy, mommy, grandma, grandpa, from whom? So it's like, who's living in you? It's pretty horrifying when you come to know that. You think you're free. But there probably isn't a gesture, a thought, an emotion, an attitude, a belief in you that isn't coming from someone else. Isn't that horrible? And you don't know it. Talk about a mechanical life that was stamped into you. And you're feeling pretty strongly about certain things, and you think you are feeling strongly about it. But are you really? It's going to take a lot of awareness for you to understand that maybe this thing that you call I is simply an agglomeration of your past experiences and of your conditioning and your programming. You're a human computer. So now how about this? How about you're taking a minute, right where you are, where you're sitting now, to be aware of, even as I talk, of what you're feeling in your body. And what's going on in your mind. And what your emotional state is like. How about being aware of that blackboard if your eyes are open? And the color of the walls? How about being aware of my face? And the reaction you have to that face of mine? Because you have one whether you're aware of it or not. And it probably isn't yours. You were conditioned to have that kind of reaction.
I wonder what we mean by the word see.
I was going to ask you that. I was thinking when I was driving down in the car. Well, I want to ask Mr. Krishnamurti what he thinks perhaps Jesus meant when he said, as a judgment upon the persons that he was speaking to, having eyes and seeing not, having ears and hearing not.
Correct.
And I was going to ask you.
So, I feel the greatest and the most important thing in all this is the art of seeing or the art of hearing. I mean, to observe without division, without the me, with all its memories, with all its experiences, interfering in the observation. Because the me, the ego, or the self, does bring division. And where there is division, there must be conflict. Like when there is national divisions, there are conflicts. So, if there is in observation, there is the division between what is and the observer who is the me, with all the memories, concepts, theories, prejudices. When he looks through those prejudices, concepts, that must create a division, therefore he is not really seeing. That's why I think we should talk about a little more what it is to observe. What is implied in seeing or hearing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? When I pay attention to what you say, in that attention, there is the verbal communication, because we both speak English or we both speak French or whatever it is. And also in that, there is no interpretation of what you are saying. That interpretation according to my framework of reference. So I am listening to you without interpretation, without translation, without any form of judgment. I am absolutely listening.
So this is an act of pure intuition, unmediated. Is that what
I wouldn't call it intuition. I attend. When I attend, there is no interference of thought.
Well, thought would not stand between your seeing and what is seen.
What is can only be observed totally, or read totally, understood totally, when there is no interpretation, there is no translation, no giving a nuance according to my prejudices, the inclinations and all the rest. So that in this attention, devotee undergoes a radical change.
Yes, yes.
I mean, after all, if I am envious, take that for me, and I attend to it completely, not say, well, not even use the word I mean, be totally aware of that feeling. Then in that observation there is no division. I am not different from the enemy. There is only enemy. In that attention, that feeling undergoes a radical change. There is no longer enemy left. Whereas if there was a division between what is, which is envy, and saying I must go, get over it, I must conquer it, I must not be envious, then there is conflict. Because there is a division.
It's sad to think that human beings would go through life with fixed ideas, programming, and they never change. And they're not aware. They're just not aware of what's going on. I really meant that. You might as well have been a block of wood. You might as well have been a rock. Really. A talking, walking, thinking machine, computer. That's not human. Puppet, jerked around by all kinds of things. Press a button, you'll get the reaction. What you are aware of, you are in control of. What you are not aware of is in control of you. You are always a slave to what you're not aware of. When you're aware of it, you're free from it. It's there, but you're not affected by it. You're not controlled by it. You're not enslaved by it. That's the difference. Awareness. Awareness, awareness, awareness. What they trained us to do at that course was to become participant observers. Like I'd be talking to you, to put it somewhat graphically, I'd be talking to you, and I'd be here talking to you, and I'd be out there watching you and watching me. When I'm listening to you, it is infinitely more important for me to listen to me than to listen to you. See if you could get that one. When I'm listening to you, it's infinitely more important for me to listen to me than to listen to you. Of course it's important to listen to you, but it's even more important that I be listening to me. Or else I won't be hearing you. Or else I'll be distorting everything you say. Or else I'll be coming at you from my own conditioning. Or else I'll be reacting to you in all kinds of ways, from my insecurities, from my need to manipulate you, from my desire to succeed, from my irritations and feelings that I may not be aware of. So it's frightfully important that I be listening to me when I'm listening to you. That's what they were training us to do, was a training in awareness. And as I shall tell you this morning, how important it is that you be listening to yourself, observing yourself, watching yourself constantly as you react to life and to people, to the world. So important. How does one do this? Does one do this consciously? You know, I said to you, observe yourself the way you would be observing someone else. That needs a little explanation. You don't always have to imagine yourself hovering up somewhere there in the air, looking at yourself. No. You know, to give you an idea, a rough idea of what I'm talking about, imagine a good driver. He's driving a car. He's concentrating on what you're saying. In fact, he's having an argument with you. That's how much he's concentrating. But he's perfectly aware of all the road signals. And the moment anything untoward happens, the moment there's any untoward sound or noise or bump, he hears it at once. He says, "You sure you closed that door back there?" How did he get that? He was aware. He was alert. The focus of his attention was on the conversation, on the argument. But his awareness was more diffuse. He was taking in all kinds of things. What I'm advocating here is not concentration. That's not important. Lots of meditative techniques inculcate concentration. I'm wary of those things. They involve violence, and they frequently involve further programming and conditioning. What I would advocate is awareness, which is not the same as concentration at all. Concentration is a spotlight. Awareness, floodlight. You're open to anything that comes within the scope of your consciousness. Big difference.
Let's start. I've been hurt for various reasons. And that hurt, I've hidden it, controlled it, resisted, and so on, built a wall. Now, I become aware of that hurt and let it flower, right? Yeah. The flowering in that awareness is the ending of the hurt. Wait, no, I must be clear this.
You said devolution.
Huh?
You said devolution of neurological response. Is it what you said?
Yes, I want to be clear. That's why I'm translating in my own stupid, simple language. I am hurt. And in that awareness, the flowering of that hurt is the ending of that hurt. Right? Dr. Adhikaram, sir, you've been hurt and you are unaware of it. You become aware of that hurt and let it come to fullness of it. Let it flower. That's what flowering means, that.
It may increase.
What?
It may increase in the meantime, sir.
What?
It may grow in the meantime.
Yes, let it grow. Let it grow, let it flower, let it bring. Now, in that awareness, the flowering is the withering. I mean, it is only when we control it, subjugate it, change it, transform it, that it continues. But when you're in that flame of awareness, the flowering is the very ending of it. This you try to see it. So I am violent. No, violence. I know what violence is. And I become aware the nature and the structure of violence. Aware. And allow it to function, to flower, to blossom, to move. In that awareness, there is no observer, is there? If there is an observer, it won't blossom. Therefore, the very blossoming, the flowering, is the ending of it.
Call it awareness, call it love, call it spirituality, or freedom, or awakening, or whatever. It really is the same thing. So to summarize what I said this afternoon, as you begin to observe yourself, self-observation, watching everything inside of you and outside. Oh, I'm going to have a lot to say about that too. Outside, the trees, the stars, the traffic, the faces of friends, the people you're living with, dried leaves, the birds, a pile of stones, water, anything. Observe, watch. You might suddenly stumble upon a whole world you had never seen, and you'd say, God, I've been here all along. How come I never saw this? To watch everything inside of you and outside. And when there's something happening to you, to see it with no comment, no judgment, no attitude, no interference, no attempt to change.
Just to be simple so that you can look. You know, you can only look at a tree or a flower or the beauty of an evening when your eyes are not clouded, when your mind is not somewhere else, when you are not tortured by your own particular little problem, then you can look at the tree. Then the evening has beauty. Then, out of that simplicity, you can observe. And as I said, to be simple is one of the most difficult and arduous things. Simple. But you say that word has been loaded by all the saints with all their pretension, with their dogmas. Therefore, they are not simple people at all. A simple mind means a mind that can see very clearly. And the moment you see with clarity anything, the problem is over. That's why to look at our conditioning needs clarity. And you can only have clarity when you don't say I like or I don't. You understand, sir? I want to see myself as a human being. Actually what is, not what I pretend or all that rubbish, but actually what is. To see very clearly there must be light. And there is no light if what I see, I translate in terms of like or dislike. You understand? It is simple, sir, when you go into it. Very, very, very simple. That is, to see anything, there must be light. And to have light, there must be care. And with clarity and care, you can observe. But that clarity and care is denied when you condemn what you see or justify what you see. Therefore, when you want to see very clearly like and dislike, judgment, condemnation disappears. Am I making myself clear? Because this is a very serious thing. Then you will find that you are your own guide. Then you are your own light, which nobody can put it out. And that way, one begins to discover for oneself the source of all life. That source which is dried up, which man has been seeking everlastingly. You may have great prosperity, as they do in the West and in America. You may be hungry, miserable, but mere solutions of these is not the answer. Because our human being, the human being is at stake. His house, which is himself, is burning. And to find the answer, you must be able to look clearly. And therefore, when you look clearly, you can reason clearly. And reason becomes insanity when there is obscurity. You understand, sir? The politicians, because they're obscure, therefore they're breeding inefficiency, hatred, division among men. And also the priests, whether in the West or in the East, are contributing to this darkness. Religion, after all, is not a matter of belief. Not what you believe or what you don't believe. Religion is the way of life, which doesn't depend on any belief or any dogma or any ritual. Only the religious mind, which lives peacefully, can find that ultimate reality.
When you fear no one, because you fear losing nothing. When you fear no one, because you're perfectly content to be nobody. Who wants to be somebody here? What's the use of it all? You don't give a damn. It doesn't matter. Success, failure means nothing. Honor, disgrace, nothing. You make a fool of yourself, means nothing. My, is that a wonderful state to be in? Now some people arrive at this painstakingly, step by step, through months and weeks of self-awareness. But I promise you one thing, I've not known of one person who would give time to being aware, who wouldn't see the difference in a matter of weeks. Already the quality of your living is changing. You don't have to take it on faith anymore. You're seeing it. You're different. You react differently. In fact, you're reacting less and you're acting more. You see things you've never seen before. You're much more energetic, much more alive. People think that if they had no cravings, they'd be like dead wood. You know what would happen to you? You'd lose your tension. Your fear of failure, your tension about succeeding, and you'd be yourself, relaxed. You wouldn't be driving with your brakes on. That's what would happen. There's a lovely saying of Chuang Tzu that I took the trouble, great Chinese sage, Chuang Tzu. When the archer shoots for nothing, he has all his skill. When he shoots for a brass buckle, he is already nervous. When he shoots for a prize of gold, he goes blind, sees two targets. He is out of his mind. His skill has not changed, but the prize divides him. He cares. He thinks more of winning than of shooting. And the need to win drains him of power. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that an image of what most people are? When the archer shoots for nothing, he has all his skill. When you're living for nothing, you've got all your skill, you've got all your energy available to you. You're relaxed. You don't care. It doesn't matter whether you win or lose. That can only come from awareness. And in awareness, as I shall explain as we go along, you will understand that honor doesn't mean a thing. It doesn't. It's a social convention. That's all. And so the prophets didn't bother one bit about it. Honor, disgrace, meant nothing to them. They were living in another world, in the world of the awakened. Success, failure, meant nothing to them.
And I'm sure it's one of the most difficult things to be free. To forget everything that one has known inwardly of yesterday. To die to every experience inwardly that one has had, pleasurable or painful. Because then the mind is free to live, to act totally. But to do this, it requires an awareness without choice, a passive awareness, in which state all the secret longings, urges, compulsions, and wishes and desires are shown, where the mind doesn't choose but merely observes. Because the moment you choose, you have established subtly authority. And therefore the mind is no longer free. To be aware inwardly of every movement of thought, the implication of every word, the significance of every desire, wish, and not to deny or to accept, but to pursue, to watch, choicelessly, does free the mind from authority. And it's only when the mind is free, then it can discover what is true and what is false. Not before. But this freedom is not at the end, but at the beginning. Therefore, meditation is not a process of disciplining the mind, of controlling the mind, or shaping the mind by desire, by knowledge. I hope you're following all this. Probably some of this is new to you, and you may reject it. You know, to accept or reject shows the incapacity to follow what another is saying to the very end. And since you have taken the trouble to come here all the way from wherever you have come, it would be absurd just to say, well, he's wrong or he's right. And so it is, I think, sufficiently important. If you take the trouble to listen. To listen to find out what is true, not what you think. To find out if what the speaker is saying something false or true. And to see the false in the truth. And to see the truth as truth, as factual. And that is denied if you are comparing. If you have read some book on some meditation, on psychological books, books on psychology, and they compare, then you're off. You're not listening. But if you listen, not with effort, to listen, because you want to find out, there's a certain joy in listening. And I feel that very act of listening to what is true is the key. You have to do nothing but to actually participate in listening. So one begins to, the mind begins to understand the whole process of its own thinking. And you will find thought becomes authority. Thought based on memory, knowledge, experience. The thinker which guides thought. So the mind has to be aware of its own thoughts, the motives, from where thoughts have arisen, the cause of them. And you will find as you inquire very, very deeply, the authority of thought ceases altogether. There are two different observations. Seeing, the seeing, the me seeing and seeing. The me seeing must inevitably be afraid and therefore resist. Therefore say, how shall I live? What shall I do? Must I give this up? Must I hold on? And so on. Shall I cross that road? Go to that village on that map? Which we said any movement of the me is violence. And there is this mere seeing the map, which is entirely different. Is this, Now, which is it that you are doing? Please, sir, come, which is it that you are doing?
Me is seeing.
Now, you say the me is seeing, therefore it's afraid.
Therefore it's afraid and it's
All right, that's afraid. Then what will you do? Knowing any movement of the me is still furthering of that fear.
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know?
The me is all I know.
No, sir, we made it very clear. Do listen to this, sir. There are two actions of seeing. Seeing the map non-directionally, non-purposively, just seeing. And the me see. The me with its purpose, with its drive, with its directive, with its resistance, says, it sees and is afraid to do this or that.
Sir, you tell me there is such a state in which you can see without the me, but I have never experienced that.
Do it now, sir. I'm showing it to you. I'm showing it. We are showing it to you. There is the me that looks at this whole map of violence and therefore is afraid and therefore resists. Or, no, there is the me that sees that and therefore resists. There is another seeing which is not the me, who just observes non-purposively. Says, I just see it. But this is simple, isn't it? I see you've got a greyish shirt. I don't say I like it or dislike it. I just see it. But the moment I say I like it, I'm already the me saying I like it. And therefore, all the rest of it. Please, this is sufficiently clear, verbally at least.
Could we go into the question of why this, I've got to use the word, why this looks without is so very difficult?
No, I don't think it is difficult. Don't say it is difficult. Then you're stuck. Then you have blocked yourself.
One summarize, I think in one case there is a seeing without purpose. In another case, purpose.
Yeah, that's all. Can I look without direction? And when I look with the direction, it's the me. What is the difficulty in this? May I ask?
Looking with the direction.
Looking with the direction is not looking, obviously.
But aren't we the illusion that it is?
That's what we are trying to point out. Seeing, we said, does the mind see the whole map without any direction?
There is an operation of this attention on the brain.
What do you mean? Who is operating?
No, the attention.
Now, what do you mean by it? That's why I'm careful in trying to find out what you mean by it. Is it something to be practiced?
No, sir.
That, if I must be very clear on that.
I am very clear, sir, that to me, that attention is like the quality of light which dispels darkness, because the two can't coexist.
Yes, it's like a flame.
It's like a flame.
Now, that attention burns away the self. Self-interest. Right?
Yes.
And that means the very brain cells themselves have undergone a change.
would I be right in paraphrasing you like this, that attention is that which triggers the process of regeneration? I'm not using the word brain cells, but only the word that a different quality comes into being.
Yes, we like to put it that way, but we must be
No,
careful.
if there is anything wrong, I would like you to...
You must be careful in the usage of that word attention. That's all my point. Now, if I may ask you, do you actually attend to what the speaker is saying at this second? Listening with all your attention. Not translating or paraphrasing or trying to interpret what he's saying, but actually listen. Or the mind, the brain is moving back and forth and translating. I know this is not, I'm not asking a personal question.
No, I understand.
But since we are talking about all these things, we must be very clear what we are saying, otherwise it all becomes so shoddy, meaningless. Are you aware of anything? Aware of the shape of this tent? How many sections there are in this tent? The printed word of the order of the tent there. Are you aware of all this? The proportions of it, the length of it, not measuring the length of it. And are you aware of the people sitting around you? The various colors, the faces, different faces, young, old, white hair, black hair, and so on. Are you aware of all this? Or you've never looked? Because if you are not aware, then you may not be aware of your own reaction. You may not be aware of your own responses. You may not be aware of your body because you're terribly intellectual living up there. Are you aware of all the sentimental, attached, and so on? If you're aware, not say, well, I'm aware, but I don't like that shirt. It's too blue. So I was told this morning. So, are we aware in that sense? Without choosing, a choiceless awareness. Then, if you are so choicelessly aware, then you are attentive. Understand? Choiceless awareness means attention. Not cultivated. Say, I must attend. But becoming aware of the trees, the birds, the balloons going up, the mountains, the light on the clouds, the evening, the moonlight, and so on. Watching, aware of all this, and your reaction to all this. And by not responding, not choosing, I like this, I don't like that, it's mine, it's yours, you follow? Just to be aware. From the choiceless awareness, there is attention.
You want to influence someone in your favor. You want an event to turn towards you to give you some kind of a reward. You're constantly sending your desires and wishes out into the world all day long, all night long, hoping to win and losing. And you have built up a certain hardened frustration and negative expectation by saying, what kind of a terrible world is this where I can't get what I want? Where whatever I try is met by a strength, a power that is greater than I am, and I get thrown back, sometimes very hurtfully. In other words, I can't win. So many impossible things that I wish to be possible remain impossible. You should be very pleased tonight to hear that what we're going to go into tonight will be something that is possible for you to do. It is something you can start with and something that will change everything in your life. It'll change the way you see yourself, change the way you see the world, change the way you think toward God, change the way you act toward everything on earth, including your own inner states. And that one thing you can do, which will not meet with rebuff, with defeat, if you're sincere, if you really mean it. That one thing you can do is to understand your mind. Really understand your mind. You don't understand it now. Can you be very honest about that at the start? Can you admit really now that you have no comprehension at all of why your mind works so wildly, so madly, why it has so many dark movements in it, why you are indeed frustrated in your desires? Can you understand then that you don't understand presently how your mind operates? If that is your starting place, it's a marvelous starting place because it's an honest one. And no self-transformation can ever proceed unless you start on the basis of self-honesty, which is to see yourself as you actually are, not as you imagine you are. I'm going to give you an illustration that will precede a certain method by which you can indeed understand your daily mind so that you're not a slave to the wrong parts of it. You've noticed, I'm sure, that as you go through your day, that your mind operates correctly sometimes. Sometimes it operates very incorrectly, dragging you down with it, dragging your spirits down with it. Listen then to the following introductory illustration. There was a man who owned a home overlooking a freeway, wide highway below his home, short distance below it. And he had a large window in front of it, so where he could stand in front of his window and see the cars and trucks pass by. One day he got a knock on the door and went to it, and two businessmen introduced themselves, and they came in and they said, "We are businessmen operating a certain survey company, and we'd like to, put it bluntly, we'd just like to hire you for a certain service. And we noticed that your home overlooked the freeway down there, and we'd like to hire you to do the following. All you have to do is certain hours of the day, sit in front of your window with pencil and pad, and make certain notations of trucks as they pass by. That's all you have to do. Sit there for a certain time, as we will tell you in detail later, and you see a truck carrying tires go by, you note on the paper that certain hour truck carrying tires went by. That's all there is to it. A few minutes later, you see a truck going by hauling furniture. You put furniture truck there. A little later, you see a truck hauling cattle from the farm. You put cattle truck down. A little later, you see a truck hauling several automobiles. You put that down. That's all you do. You just make a notation of what you saw down the highway below. And of course, we'll pay you for it. When you turn in the information, they'll feed it into a computer, and it will give us certain benefits in promoting and promoting business and making it more efficient. So the man said, fine, very good, I'd like to do that. It's interesting work. And so he did. And so for the next 2 or 3 weeks, under detailed instructions, he sat at the window with pad and pencil. And every few minutes he'd just make a note as he'd been instructed to do. Truck with hay on it, truck with machinery on it, truck with vegetables from the farm on it. Made notes. And finally his work was over. And they came back, took all his notes and paid him, and that was the end of his experience. But he was a human being. And human beings have troubles. And he had his troubles. He had bad and strained relationships with other people. And he just worried a lot about the slightest thing. Just the smallest sight out into his yard, for example, could make him worry about whether they have to put new pipes in. He found plenty of things to worry about. He was a troubled man, like every other human being. And this went on for a long time. And everything he tried to find peace of mind, to understand his mind, everything he tried failed to work. He continued to be as worried, as concerned as he was before. As a matter of fact, it seemed to him that things were getting worse instead of getting better. He tried religious readings. He tried group therapy. He tried listening to lectures. He tried everything that society offered to help him understand his own mind and be free of his raging mind, but he was not free. On and on it went. Nothing changed in spite of his fierce application to his studies and his religions and philosophies. In his heart, he knew he was the same man when he started, which was very nice honesty on his part. Finally, he ran out of exterior teachers, exterior helpers. And he looked at all the books in his library, in his home. And he looked at all the study courses he had taken. And he looked at all his notebooks. And he knew there was no help there. And his desperation grew, because if he couldn't get help where it was normally offered, where he was going to find an answer to his awful, awful heartache and confusion. He just didn't know. And then one day, and he didn't know how it came to him, but one day the following idea came. That was a very interesting employment I had a while back, in which all I had to do was sit at the window and watch the trucks go by and note their contents. Note the cargo. Quite interesting. And he wondered whether he might apply that inwardly, whether he might do the very same thing of noting the contents of his own mind, of his own thoughts as they went by. So that's well worth trying. I can do this 24 hours a day wherever I am. I can practice internally what I did externally for employment. And so he did. He noticed the next time he worried about the water pipes out in the front yard, the next time he worried, he stood apart and saw the worry, and he knew that he was worried. Before, he didn't. All he did was worry about it. And he now knew the difference between simply worrying and knowing, being aware that he worried. He began to see it was a different process altogether. And it went on to other things. Even his anxiety over his inability to change himself, to be happy. He even saw that that was a thought that went by through his mind. And he saw a very interesting and helpful parallel between his employment and what he was doing now. For example, one time he saw a load of wild animals being shipped to a zoo when he had been employed and was watching the highway down there. And he said, now, when I saw that shipment of wild animals. I could see them in the cages down there on the backs of flat trucks. I saw the tigers and the lions. I saw all these fierce animals. All I did was see them. I noted the contents, which was that it was a cargo of wild animals. I certainly didn't get scared. The animals, those animals down there had nothing to do with me, no matter how fierce they were. They had no connection with me. I was simply witnessing the fierce animals, not being attacked by them. They were simply going by. And he noticed other similarities, that when he was up there in his window watching the trucks go by, he was simply an observer of the whole process, not being part of it at all. A truckload of furniture would go by, and he said to himself, now wouldn't it be ridiculous of me, while I was being employed, wouldn't it be ridiculous every time a truckload of furniture went by, wouldn't it be strange if I said, I want that furniture? I didn't say I must have that furniture. I looked, and very impersonally, I said, there goes a shipment of furniture, and I made a note of it. And that's all I did, is notice it. I didn't have any emotional chain to it at all. I wasn't fearful. I wasn't desirous. I wasn't afraid. There's no negative emotions at all going through me. No desire. And as he kept this parallel in mind, he thought of a phrase. And the phrase was caught thought. Because that's what he was doing. He caught the thought. Caught thought. And the rhyme wasn't bad either. And he said, that's a good way to remember what I'm trying to do, to get some little brief phrase like that, to remind me that I had better catch more thoughts, catch the deeper ones, the ones that are more subtle, ones connected with sex, for example, that are so subtle, because there's a lot of false shame connected with them, perhaps. So remember the phrase, the method of caught thought. And the more he practiced it, the more he realized an astonishing thing. That by him simply doing what he could do to understand his mind, repeat, by only doing what he could do, the possible, it's possible to begin to try to understand why and how things move up there. Just by doing that, by doing something right, which is possible to be done, that his inner state changed. And when worries came up, for example, again, the water pipes out in his yard there, he knew that that was a worry thought, and the more he knew that, the less power it had over him to shake him and to make him think that he was going to lose something. So that he can think toward all exterior things, all the daily things that he has to do and that you have to do. All he had to do was to think about them from a practical viewpoint. The water pipes in the yard need to be changed, then you change them yourself or call someone and change them. And that is the end of it, because this is the nature of life when we're in a physical world like this. Let me ask you a question at this point. Do you really think that God, the truth, the reality, has condemned you to unconscious self-laceration for the rest of your life? Self-whipping? Do you really think that that is a necessary state for you to endure and suffer from all day long? Now, I had better add a very important point at this point. Are you so in love with worrying over the water pipes, over a human relationship, over the future? Are you so entrenched, confined in your own mind by all these worries that you prefer them and want to go back to sleep and want to shake away people, push away people who try to shake you awake? And you don't know what you are doing to yourself? One purpose of your being here is to know, to understand how, because you have neglected the study and comprehension of your mind, that your mind will take full advantage of your laziness and your lack of the wish to develop. Now on with it. Worry, let's use that as a generalization, which you all have. You all worry, and those of you watching this film all worry. You're not happy, you're not free. And if you're even if you criticize the truth, if you have something critical to say about a presentation of truth, can't you ask yourself why you are worried about hearing the truth? Shall I tell you why you're worried and why you're sarcastic? Because you fear that God will take away your miserable, egotistical life. Now, I'm saying this as a fact, not in criticism of you. I'm saying that as a fact, you don't understand what's going on inside you, inside your mind. If you did understand them, you wouldn't have this sour spirit. And you wouldn't try to lead other people away from the truth, which you may now be doing. In short, you would no longer be an enemy of your own life here on earth. How's that for a thought? Maybe that startles you just a little bit, and it should. Can you picture yourself as being an enemy of your own life here on earth? Question. Now watch how you answer this. You watch very carefully your mind as you answer this. Can any dark mood, such as depression, such as vicious criticism, such as snaring, can that be right for you, or is it wrong for you? Now you have to start doing some thinking for yourself. Don't you dare sit there and tell me, and don't you dare sit there and tell yourself that any sour spirit you have toward the truth that is setting you free, don't you dare tell me that that is good for you. How can the bad be the good? I'll tell you your problem. You haven't even advanced to the point yet where you know the difference between giving yourself healthy impressions and giving yourself sick impressions. I am telling you here tonight, and those of you watching this film, I'm telling you, you had better start standing aside and seeing how you are identifying with those passing thoughts instead of standing aside and pushing them away in the sense that you're not accepting them being yours. You are embracing a cage full of wild animals. Doesn't that explain to you why you're so nervous living with yourself? You are apprehensive, you know, living with your own inner self, are you not? Can you tell the truth about that? You will begin to understand your mind, which will then instruct you on both ordinary life and higher life. You can begin to understand it, and that very understanding is a force that works for you. Up to this time, you've been defeated. Remember, we started with that. You're going out in the world wanting to win all these victories, and you find yourself defeated. Here's one place, and again, I always have to add this. If you're earnest, if you're sincere, there's no way you can be defeated because there's something far more intelligent than you that is on your side. It is winning for you. The first taste of self-change you have will be the internal evidence of the truth of what you've heard here tonight. And evidence that if you just have a little bit of truth, that will give you a little bit of inner change and a little bit of authentic and lasting happiness. And if you have more truth, that's going to give you more change and more happiness. Happiness being nothing more and everything, being nothing more than freedom from false happiness. That is freedom from delusion, freedom from thinking that excitement is right for you, thinking that lashing back at something that opposes you is right. Can't you see that lashing out at yourself or at anyone else is very, very wrong? Could you start at the very beginning and see the difference between what is right for you and what is wrong for you? You will never know what is right for another human being until you first know what is right for you. And you've been hearing it now for about 25 minutes, what is right for you. You've been to begin hearing about a very practical plan, procedure, that anyone in this room or watching this film, a very practical plan that you could put into operation right now, tonight, till the day, and the day will come, I will guarantee you this if you persist in it, the day will come when all of a sudden you say to yourself, at last, I see that I didn't know what awareness was before. I used the word, I talked about it, I boast about it, I said I'm aware all the time. I now see that I was totally unaware, that I was in this cage of animals going by, instead of standing by and simply seeing them pass by. You actually can see yourself standing at a distance from everything that's going on down on the highway. That is, everything that's going on inside of you, which gradually sets you free.
So can we not accept any guru, any leader, including especially the speaker? Never accept anything psychologically except that we have watched ourselves in our relationship, we have watched our speech, the voice, the tone of the voice, the words we use, all that. Can one be all day or some time of the day be aware of all that? And then perhaps you don't need any guru, any leader, any book, including that of the speaker. Then there is something totally different takes place when one is really attentive